My son left me alone at an airport in a foreign country, without money, without documents, without hope. He wanted to get rid of me once and for all, so he could take my house for himself. But when he opened the door to the house, I was already standing there, smiling. "Oh, you're back? I have a surprise for you." That surprise ruined his whole life. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I returned from the restroom to find them huddled together like conspirators. Rodney and Cora, heads bent close, whispering with an urgency that stopped the moment I approached. They sprang apart as if I'd caught them doing something shameful. "Everything okay?" I settled into my seat at gate 17, watching them. "You two have been quiet this morning." Rodney didn't look up from his phone. "Fine, just tired from the trip." Cora's smile was too bright, too sudden. "We're just ready to get home. Can't wait to sleep in our own bed." We still had 90 minutes before our flight to Seattle. The week in Puerto Vallarta had been good. Beaches, dinners, the kind of family time I thought we'd lost after Rodney's mother passed. But something had shifted this morning. The air between us felt thick, wrong. I watched Rodney's thumb scroll across his screen without reading anything. Cora fidgeted with her boarding pass, folding and unfolding the paper. Neither of them looked at me. 20 minutes later, Rodney stood abruptly. "Dad, we need water and some snacks for the flight. You know what we all like. Can you grab stuff?" I started to rise. "Sure, we can all go." "No, you go." He pressed a $20 bill into my palm, his fingers cold despite the terminal heat. "I need to make a work call, and Cora has to hit the restroom. Here's $20. The insistence in his voice didn't match the simple errand. He stepped back, creating distance, his eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder. I looked at Cora. She was already staring at her phone. "All right." I took the money, felt its crispness. "Be right back." The airport shop was small, tucked between a currency exchange and a coffee stand. I took my time, studying the shelves. Rodney liked the expensive imported water, the kind with the blue label. I grabbed 3 bottles. Trail mix for Cora. She always wanted the one with dried cranberries. Protein bars for me. The checkout line moved slowly. A family ahead of me had 2 crying children and a stroller blocking half the aisle. 12 minutes passed, maybe 14. I rounded the corner back to gate 17 with the plastic bag in hand. The seats were empty. Not just empty, cleared. No backpacks, no jackets. No sign anyone had been sitting in seats 14, 15, and 16. Other passengers occupied different chairs now, scrolling phones, reading magazines, oblivious. The bag slipped from my fingers. I yanked my backpack off my shoulder, hands shaking as I unzipped the main compartment. My spare shirt was there. Toiletry bag, nothing else. The inner pocket where my passport always stayed, empty. I checked the side pocket, no phone. Front compartment, no wallet. My hands moved faster, checking every space twice, 3 times, hoping I'd somehow missed them. Nothing. Gone. All of it. I grabbed the shopping bag and half ran to the gate counter. A young woman in an airline uniform looked up from her computer. "The couple sitting in 14 and 15, did you see where they went?" She typed something, eyes scanning her screen. "Evan's party? They took the earlier flight to Denver. Standby upgrades. Departed 20 minutes ago." "Denver?" My voice came out louder than I intended. "We're going to Seattle. That's my son." "Sir, their boarding passes were for the Denver connection." The terminal tilted slightly. "Denver. Not Seattle. Not home. Did they leave anything? A message?" Her expression shifted from efficient to sympathetic. "No, sir. I'm sorry." I walked back to the empty seats, sat down heavily, pulled out the $20 bill from my pocket. Still there, still crisp. The only money I had in the world right now. $20. He gave me $20 and took everything. The plastic bag sat on the chair beside me. 3 bottles of water, including the expensive one Rodney preferred. Trail mix, protein bars. I'd spent $12 being thoughtful. $8 remained. I stood, legs unsteady, and made my way to airport security. The officer behind the desk had kind eyes and a tired face. My son took my passport. The words sounded absurd, spoken aloud. My phone, my wallet, everything. He just left me here. "Do you have any identification? Any way to prove who you are?" "I have nothing. $20 and a bag of water bottles." She wrote something on a form, asked questions I answered mechanically. Names, addresses, flight numbers. She gave me a case number, suggested I contact the U.S. Consular Agency downtown. Her sympathy was genuine, but couldn't change the facts. I walked away from her office, forms in hand that meant nothing without identification. The terminal stretched ahead. Shops, restaurants, gates full of travelers with phones and wallets, and futures planned beyond the next hour. I passed a family boarding their flight, parents shepherding children, everyone accounted for, everyone belonging somewhere. My reflection in the massive windows showed a man alone. The backpack hung empty from one shoulder. The plastic bag dangled from my other hand. Behind my reflection, planes took off, rising into cloudless blue sky, their engines roaring promises of destinations and arrivals. One of them carried my son. I stood there, watching them climb and disappear, as something hard and cold settled in my chest, where trust used to live. The terminal sounds faded, announcements, rolling luggage, conversation. All I heard was silence and the question I couldn't answer. Why? I took a breath. Another. The shock lifted slowly, like fog revealing terrain beneath. Stranded, yes. Helpless, no. The businessman in me, dormant these past years since retirement, woke up. First, identification. Second, money. Third, home. I created a mental checklist the way I used to before board meetings. The information desk directed me to the U.S. Consular Agency. I walked there 20 minutes through streets where tourists haggled over silver jewelry and locals sold fruit from carts. The office was small, efficient, American flag on the wall, photos of the president. A woman at the desk looked up as I entered. "Tell me what happened, Mr. Evans. Start from the beginning." Her name was Patricia Henderson. I sat across from her and explained it all. The vacation, the airport, the empty seats. My son left me at the airport, took my passport, my phone, my wallet, everything. She waited, pen poised over a form. "My son did this? He's been living in my house rent-free for 2 years. I think he wants to keep it." Something shifted in her expression. Professional distance giving way to something personal. She set down her pen. "We can issue an emergency passport. 3 business days minimum. Requires a police report and payment of $135. I emptied my pockets on her desk. $8. Mexican coins. A breakfast receipt from 3 days ago. The $20 bill. Patricia excused herself, returned 10 minutes later with paperwork and news. Payment deferred until I reached home. Emergency assistance fund would help with immediate needs. I'd pay it back. She could see that, she said. 28 years doing this job taught her to recognize who would and wouldn't. "You're not broken," she said, sliding forms across the desk. "You're angry. Angry people find their way home." Outside the consular office, I sat on a bench, forms in hand. A woman approached, Maria, from the airport information desk. I recognized her face. "You have family to call? Friends?" "My son was my family. I have neighbors, but no way to reach them." She nodded slowly. "Sometimes the people closest to us are the furthest away. My father, similar story. Different details. Same betrayal." "How did it end for him?" "He survived, built something new. You will too." She drove me to a hostel in her old Honda. $15 per night. Clean. Safe. She refused the $2 I offered for gas. Her father had been abandoned once too, she said. Some betrayals cut deeper than others. The hostel room held 6 bunk beds and the smell of salt air and laundry detergent. I took the bottom bunk in the corner. My roommates, 2 German backpackers, a construction worker from Guadalajara, shared their dinner. Bread, cheese, fruit. The girl lent me her phone. I dialed my home number. It rang. No answer. Tried again an hour later. Again. Still no answer. Where was Rodney? Day 2. I walked to the police station downtown. The officer took my statement through a translator. Passport stolen, phone stolen, wallet stolen. By my son. The officer's eyebrows rose at that last detail. Your son, he lives with you? In my house, yes. I let him stay there. And you believe this was planned? The tickets to Denver instead of Seattle. The timing. The standby upgrade. Yes. This was planned. He typed slowly, printed the report, stamped it, handed it over with a look that said he was sorry, but this wouldn't bring anything back. That night, lying on the hostel bunk, ceiling fan clicking its steady rhythm overhead, The memory surfaced. Last month. Rodney visiting more often than usual. Being helpful, attentive. Then, Dad, we should update your medical directive, just in case something happens. Simple form, just sign here. The document had been on his laptop screen. I signed with the electronic signature pad, trusting him completely. Never saw a printed copy, never questioned it. The realization hit like cold water. That wasn't a medical directive. I sat up, startling the German backpacker in the bunk across from me. What had I signed? Power of attorney? Property transfer? The possibilities churned through my mind, each worse than the last. Day 3, I walked the streets of Puerto Vallarta. Not tourist walking, purposeful, methodical. My mind worked through the problem like it used to work through business deals. What does Rodney want? The house. What does Rodney think? That I'm trapped here. What's his timeline? At least a week before he expects me home. That was my advantage. Surprise. Patricia handed me the emergency passport at noon. Thin, temporary, but official. She also gave me an envelope. $600 cash. From the Emergency Assistance Fund. Pay it back when you can. I found an internet cafe. $1 for 30 minutes. Seattle Direct. $420. I booked it for tomorrow morning. Rodney's flight went through Denver. He'd mentioned meetings there, 2 days, maybe 3. I'd beat him home by at least 3 days. Back at the hostel, I made my own checklist. Document everything. Change the locks. Find that paper I signed. Get a lawyer. Make Rodney explain himself face to face. Not revenge. Justice. There's a difference. The German girl asked if I was all right. I was lying on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, probably looking grim. Maybe he doesn't want to know, she said, meaning Rodney not answering my calls. That's what I'm counting on. He thinks I'm stuck here. He's wrong. The next morning, I boarded the flight to Seattle. Economy, middle seat, between a mother with a sleeping infant and a teenager with headphones. My emergency passport rested in my shirt pocket, $165 in my sock. The plane taxied down the runway. Through the small window, Puerto Vallarta shrank beneath us. Beach, hotels, the airport where everything changed. The wheels left the ground. I didn't look back. My mind was already in Seattle, already at my front door, already planning the expression on my face when Rodney walked in and found his father waiting. The seatbelt sign blinked off. The flight attendant began beverage service. Water, please? Free? Save every dollar. 3 hours and 40 minutes to Seattle. Rodney didn't know I was coming. The wheels hit runway concrete with that jarring thud that says you're home. The plane tilted as we braked, engines roaring in reverse. Through the window I saw Seattle, rain-dark clouds, evergreen hills, the familiar airport buildings. Home. But home was different now, not refuge. Battlefield. I waited while other passengers grabbed bags from overhead bins, jostled toward the exit. Patient. Methodical. I had time. Rodney didn't know I was coming. The rideshare driver had a Seahawks air freshener hanging from her mirror. Young woman, probably 25. Chatty at first until she sensed I wasn't interested in conversation. She pulled up to the house 47 minutes later. I stared at it from the back seat. Pale blue Craftsman. White trim. The porch I rebuilt 5 years ago. The garden waiting for spring planting. $850,000 of real estate. My life's work. My security. Rodney lived there rent-free and wanted to take it all. I paid the $47 fare, added $3 for tip, calculated generosity, and thanked her. Stood on the sidewalk with my nearly empty backpack, looking at my own house like I was seeing it for the first time. Alton? I turned. Daniel Kowalski emerged from next door, white hair catching the afternoon light, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He wore a cardigan despite the mild weather. You're back early. He walked toward me, expression cycling through surprise, confusion, concern. Where's Rodney? Is everything all right? The questions came fast. Daniel had lived next door 12 years. Retired history teacher, observant by profession and nature. He knew when something was wrong. I decided quickly. An observant neighbor was almost as good as a friend. They came back early. Different flight. I had some delays. Different flight? His eyebrows rose. That seems odd for a family vacation. Tell me about what you saw when they were loading the car. We stood on the strip of grass between our driveways. Daniel adjusted his glasses. It was early morning, 3 days before you were due back. Boxes, bags. More than seemed normal for a vacation. I waved, but Rodney didn't wave back. Seemed focused. Intense, maybe. Premeditated, careful, hidden. What time? 6:30, maybe earlier, before most neighbors were awake. I filed this away. Thank you. If Rodney comes by while I'm out, don't tell him you saw me. Daniel studied my face. Understanding dawned slowly. I haven't seen you. You're still in Mexico, far as I know. Exactly. I retrieved the spare key from its hiding place, the fake rock near the rhododendrons my wife planted 20 years ago. My fingers remembered the motion. Unlocked the door. Disarmed the security system. Code unchanged, which meant Rodney expected no interference. Stepped inside. The house smelled stale. Closed up. Unaired. I moved through rooms with increasing speed. Living room. Grandfather clock, missing from the corner where it had stood for 30 years. Dining room. Silver service gone from the china cabinet, leaving gaps like missing teeth. My bedroom. The jewelry box my wife left me, emptied of her rings and bracelets. The study. My Omega watch. Collectible. Worth $2,800. Not in its case. The vintage Leica camera, absent from its shelf. Each missing item was a small theft. Together they formed a pattern. Rodney didn't just abandon me. He robbed me first. My home office occupied the converted sunroom. Desk facing the window, overlooking the garden. On the desk, centered perfectly, lay a manila folder. I opened it. Legal documents. Official seals. Notary stamps. The top page read, Deed of Gift, in bold typeface. I scanned quickly. Property address, mine. Grantor, Alton Evans. Grantee, Rodney Evans. Consideration, love and affection. Date, 4 weeks ago. My signature at the bottom. Witnessed, notarized. My hands didn't shake. They should have. Instead, they were steady, cold. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was frozen solid, sharp enough to cut. I walked back outside. Daniel was watering his plants, but I could tell he was waiting. Can I borrow your phone? He handed it over without questions. I photographed everything. Every empty space where valuables used to sit. Every gap on shelves. The open watch case. The missing camera. The desk drawer. The deed of gift from every angle. Evidence. I learned in business. Document everything, assume nothing, trust nobody. Daniel stood on his porch while I worked. When I returned his phone, he asked, Alton, if you need anything, if there's trouble. There's trouble, but I'm handling it. Inside again, I picked up the landline. Still worked. Called my bank. This is Alton Evans, account ending in 7743. I need to verify there's been no unusual activity. Security questions. Mother's maiden name. First car. Street I grew up on. The representative checked. Everything looks normal, sir. Last transaction was 4 weeks ago. Automatic utility payment. No attempts to add authorized users or change beneficiaries? No, sir. Your account settings are unchanged. One small relief. Rodney took objects. Took the house on paper, but hadn't drained the money. Maybe couldn't. Maybe didn't have time. Maybe planned to do it later. Another small advantage. I still had resources. I sat at my desk, the deed of gift in front of me, and remembered. 1 month ago. Tuesday. Rodney brought lunch. Sandwiches from the deli I liked. We ate, talked, laughed about nothing important. Then, Dad, I updated some documents for you. Medical power of attorney, living will, that stuff. You should review and sign, just to be current. His laptop was already open. Document on screen. Signature pad connected. I signed electronically. Trusting. Never saw a printed copy. Never questioned what it actually said. That Tuesday. That sandwich. That signature. That's when I lost everything. I stood alone in my living room as darkness gathered outside. Spoke to the empty house. You thought I'd be stranded. You thought I'd be gone long enough for you to establish possession. My reflection stared back from the darkened window. You thought wrong. Morning light came through the east kitchen window, cutting across the table where I sat with instant coffee in a chipped mug. The list I'd made the night before lay in front of me. Items crossed off, new ones added, priorities circled twice. Top of the list. Lawyer. I'd spent the previous evening on Daniel's borrowed laptop. Searching. 3 real estate attorneys downtown, all experienced in property disputes. Margaret Chen's name appeared most often in successful case outcomes. At 8 o'clock exactly, I dialed her office. A receptionist answered, professional and practiced. I asked for a consultation, said it was urgent. She began offering dates next week. My son stole my house. I have the document. I need help today. Silence on the line. Then, hold please. 30 seconds passed. A different voice came on. This is Margaret Chen. Tell me what happened. I gave her the condensed version, hitting key facts. She asked 3 questions. Is the document notarized? Yes. Is your signature genuine? Yes. Did you know what you were signing? No. Come in at 11. Bring the document and any identification you have. I prepared for the meeting like a business presentation. Gathered everything, the deed of gift, emergency passport, bank statements, photos of stolen items, Daniel's written statement about seeing Rodney load cargo, organized chronologically in a manila folder, dressed carefully, pressed shirt, slacks, jacket. Appearance mattered. People judged credibility by presentation. Her office was downtown, 20th floor, corner view of Puget Sound. Margaret Chen was smaller than I expected, maybe 5'3", precise in movement and speech. Gray-streaked black hair pulled back severely. The office smelled like paper and printer toner. Law books lined 2 walls. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Worn leather, shaped by countless clients with countless problems. I sat, placed the deed of gift on her desk like evidence at trial. She put on reading glasses, began examining it. Expression didn't change, but her pen moved faster, making notes. 5 minutes later, she looked up. This is a properly executed deed of gift. The notary seal is legitimate. The language is standard. Your signature appears genuine, is it? I nodded. Then legally, as of the date on this document, your son owns your house. The words hit like physical blows. However, and that word carried weight, if you can prove you were deceived about the document's nature, we can argue fraud. She swiveled her computer monitor toward me. The deed of gift filled the screen, enlarged. Walk me through the signing. What exactly did your son tell you? He said it was updating my medical directives. Power of attorney if I became incapacitated. Made sense. I'm 63. Did you read the document before signing? It was on his laptop screen, small text. He scrolled through it quickly, said it was standard language. And you never received a signed copy? Never. I assumed it was filed with his records. For emergencies? Her pen flew across the notepad. That's our angle. Misrepresentation of document contents. Concealment of true nature. She made copies of everything, returned originals, scanned the deed, enlarged the notary section. This was done carefully, professional, premeditated. She pointed at details on the screen. The notary's name is visible here. I'll need to interview them. She typed notes rapidly. This will cost money, retainer, court fees, possibly expert witnesses. Are you prepared for that? I sold a business 3 years ago. I have resources. This is worth every dollar. What will this cost? Realistic numbers. Retainer today, $5,000. If it goes to full trial, $20,000 to $40,000 more. Maybe higher if he fights hard. I didn't hesitate. I'll write the check. What are our odds? If we can prove deception, 60-40 in your favor. Maybe better with the airport abandonment adding context. But fraud is hard to prove. I'm not walking away from my house. I didn't think you were. That's why I cleared my schedule. The police station came next. East Precinct, afternoon. Fluorescent lights, scuffed linoleum, metal chairs. I filed formal complaint. Theft of property from airport. Stolen passport, wallet, phone. Stolen items from home. The officer taking the report was young. Probably late 20s. She typed slowly. The suspect is your son? Yes. And he lives with you? In my house, yes. The house he's trying to steal. She looked up at that. This is a civil matter, sir. We can take the report about stolen items, but property disputes go through courts. I kept my voice level. The theft happened in Mexico, international. The stolen items have serial numbers. That's criminal. She typed faster. Asked for serial numbers. I provided them. Watch and camera. Documented for insurance. She asked about the silver service value. I estimated conservatively. $3,500. 90 minutes later, she handed me a case number. "Someone will follow up," she said, tone suggesting I shouldn't hold my breath. Back at Margaret's office, I watched her work, typing rapidly, printing, signing, gathering documents. "Motion to invalidate deed of gift based on fraud and undue influence," the header read. "I'm requesting expedited hearing given the living situation dispute." She collated pages, stapled them. "Your son will be served with these papers. He'll know you're back. He'll know you're fighting." Good, I want him to know. The locksmith arrived at 5. Company van, toolbox, professional demeanor, middle-aged man named Frank. "These are good locks. Lasted well? Why the change?" "Security upgrade." He worked efficiently. "Front door, back door, garage entrance. New keys, new deadbolts, new security." "None of my business," Frank said, installing the front deadbolt. "But the old keys won't work anymore. If someone has copies. That's the point." "Understood. These new ones are pick-resistant. Better protection." $340. I paid without hesitation. Money well spent. Frank handed over 3 sets of keys. "Old locks are disabled. Nobody's getting in with old keys." I tested each lock twice. Solid. Secure. My house again. After Frank left, I walked through each room, testing the new locks. Key turned smooth. Bolt slid home. Perfect. I pocketed 1 set, hid the second in a new location, kept the third on my desk. Then I moved furniture. Not rearranging exactly. Claiming. Pushed the couch 6 inches. Rotated dining chairs. Small changes, but changes. Marking territory. Making the space mine again. Evening settled over Capitol Hill. I stood at the front window. New locks secure behind me. Legal documents filed. Police reports submitted. My house. My fortress. My battleground. Across the street, lights flickered on in neighbors' homes. Normal lives continuing. My life hadn't been normal since the airport. Might never be normal again. The new phone I'd bought sat silent on the coffee table. No calls. Rodney didn't know this number. Rodney thought his father was still in Mexico, helpless, abandoned. Wrong. 6:47 p.m. 8:47 in Denver. Was Rodney at dinner? In a hotel? Planning his return to his house? The uncertainty bothered me less than it should. I'd established position. Changed the field. When Rodney came back, everything would be different. I moved to the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, empty except for condiments and expired milk. Tomorrow I'd shop, restock, live. Tonight, instant coffee and frozen bread would do. I carried another cup back to the window. The street was quiet. No cars approaching. Not yet. I sipped coffee, watched, and waited for the confrontation I knew was coming. 2 days passed. I spent them preparing. Documents organized on the coffee table. New keys in my pocket. Phone charged. Recording app tested and ready. I moved through the house like a general inspecting fortifications, checking windows, testing locks, claiming territory. Late afternoon on the second day, I heard a car door slam outside. I moved to the window, parted the curtain 1 inch. Rodney's silver Honda Accord sat in my driveway. He stood beside it, staring at the house. Even from inside, I could see confusion dawning on his face. Cora emerged from the passenger side, looked toward the front door, whispered something I couldn't hear. I let the curtain fall, counted to 5, waited for the doorbell or knock. Instead, I heard a key scraping in the lock. Once, twice, 3 times, harder. The old key, useless now. Rodney cursed quietly. Cora's voice came through the door, sharp. "What's wrong?" "Lock's jammed or something." More scraping. Metal on metal. Nothing turning. Then silence. Footsteps moving around the house. They were checking the back door. I heard them try that lock too. More confusion in their voices, audible through walls. They returned to the front porch. "Call him," Cora said. "He doesn't have his phone. We have his phone." But he tried anyway. Somewhere in the house, my old disconnected phone buzzed once. Died. My new phone rang. Unknown number. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Yes? Dad, is that you?" "It is? Where are you?" "I've been trying to reach—" "I'm home, Rodney, inside the house. Your keys don't work anymore." Dead silence. Then, "What? How did you— When did you—" "3 days ago. Come to the front door. We need to talk." I opened the door, but stood in the frame, not inviting them in. Rodney looked exhausted. Wrinkled clothes, 2 days of travel visible on his face. Cora stood slightly behind him, eyes sharp, assessing. Rodney tried his concerned son expression. Dad, thank goodness you're safe. We were so worried. What happened at the airport? We looked for you everywhere. I raised my hand. He stopped. I know what happened. You sent me to buy water. You flew to Denver. You took my passport, my phone, my wallet, my money. You abandoned me in Mexico with nothing. His mouth opened, closed. No words came. I stepped aside just enough to reveal the coffee table through the doorway. Legal documents stacked neatly. I have something to show you. I picked up the top document, held it so they could see the header. Motion to invalidate deed of gift based on fraud. Rodney's face went pale. That document you had me sign, the one you said was a medical directive, it wasn't. It was a property transfer. You stole my house on paper before you abandoned me in another country. Cora's hand gripped Rodney's arm. Her voice came out ice cold. We need a lawyer. Rodney recovered. His voice hardened. That deed is legal. My lawyer already reviewed it. Your signature, properly notarized, legally binding. This house is mine. You're the one trespassing. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police for unlawful occupation. I didn't flinch. Go ahead. Seattle Police East Precinct already has my report. Case number 774821. Theft in Puerto Vallarta Airport. Stolen items from this house before the trip. Collectible watch, vintage camera, silver service. Your neighbor saw you loading boxes. His finger hovered over the phone. Didn't dial. You reported me. I reported theft, criminal acts. The police have your name, your description, your flight information. Call them. See what happens. I pulled out my own phone, showed the screen. Red recording, dot, visible. This conversation is being recorded. Washington is a two-party consent state, and I'm informing you now. Everything you say from this point is documented. Rodney's phone lowered. Cora tugged his arm, whispered something urgent. This isn't over, Rodney said. No, it's not. But it's not going the way you planned. They walked backward off the porch, down the steps, toward their car. Rodney kept looking back, at the house, at me, at what he thought he'd claimed. I stood in the doorway until they were in the car, until they were backing down the driveway, until they were gone. Then I closed the door. The new lock clicked solidly. I leaned against it, breathing slow and steady. First round, mine. Through the window, I watched their car disappear. My hands were steady, but my heart pounded, adrenaline catching up now that the confrontation was over. I walked through the house, checking doors and windows from habit. All secure. In the kitchen, I poured water, drank it standing at the sink. The house was quiet again. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. Saw them arrive and leave. You okay? I typed back, fine, thank you. He didn't ask more. I didn't elaborate. I returned to the living room, gathered the documents from the coffee table, filed them back in the folder. Motion to invalidate. Police report. Bank notifications. Locksmith receipt. Paper trail of resistance. Paper trail of war. My phone rang. Margaret Chen's office. I answered, expecting questions about the confrontation. Instead, her paralegal's voice. Mr. Evans, we've received notice from opposing counsel. Rodney Evans has retained representation. Attorney named Robert Michaels specializes in property disputes. He's filed a counter motion asserting the deed's validity and requesting immediate possession pending court decision. I sat down. The battle had truly begun. 3 days after the confrontation, I sat in Margaret's office for a strategy meeting. She slid a thick document across her desk. Robert Michaels is thorough. He's filed for expedited hearing on possession, claiming you're unlawfully occupying your son's property. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I read the motion. Legal language, but the message was clear. Rodney was fighting back hard. Michaels is good. Margaret refilled her coffee, gestured to offer me some. I shook my head. He's reframing the entire narrative. You become the unreasonable parent. Rodney becomes the victim. But the facts, Mexico, the theft, the deception, facts matter, but so does presentation. He's separating the criminal allegations from the property dispute, making it look like you're using criminal complaints to relitigate a gift you regret. Oh, that's not what happened. I know. The judge will decide if she knows. That's why we need more evidence. Direct evidence of fraud at the signing. She walked me through Rodney's strategy. Michaels is arguing you made a valid gift, fully informed, properly executed. His position is that you regretted it after the fact. Maybe because you had a falling out, maybe because you're confused about what you signed. He's not acknowledging the Mexico incident in his filings. He's treating this as pure property dispute, ignoring the criminal context. She paused. It's smart. It simplifies his argument. I felt the ground shifting, the narrative being rewritten, my abandonment becoming family disagreement, my stolen house becoming regretted gift. 1 week after the confrontation, Margaret called with worse news. Rodney has filed emergency motion for immediate possession. His argument, he's homeless, living in hotel, while his legal property is occupied by someone who gave it to him. The motion cited financial hardship, hotel costs draining resources, legal ownership via the deed, irreparable harm from being unable to access his property. It's manipulation, Margaret said, but judges sometimes grant possession pending litigation, especially if ownership documents appear valid. We need to counter this fast. I authorized another $3,500 retainer. The costs mounted like water rising. Daniel mentioned the social media attack awkwardly one evening over the fence between our yards. Elton, I don't believe it, but people are talking. Online. Your daughter-in-law posted something. I didn't have social media accounts. Daniel showed me on his phone. Cora's post, carefully worded. Heartbroken. My husband's father gave us his house, then changed his mind and locked us out. We're homeless while he lives in our legal property. Family shouldn't treat family this way. Comments below? Dozens. Split between support and suspicion. Some friends from my past asking what was happening. My privacy invaded. My reputation attacked. Should I respond? Explain? I asked Daniel. Talk to your lawyer first. Anything you say publicly might be used in court. So I stay silent while she lies. Sometimes silence is stronger than arguing. People who matter will wait for the truth. 2 weeks into the legal battle, Margaret scheduled a financial discussion. She spread expense projections across her desk. Initial retainer, $5,000. Additional filing fees and discovery, $3,500 already spent. If this goes to full trial, depositions, expert witnesses, court time, we're looking at $40,000 to $60,000 total. Maybe more if Michaels drags it out. She met my eyes. I need you to understand what you're committing to. This is mortgage money, retirement savings money. Rodney is betting you'll settle rather than pay these costs. I looked at the numbers. My business sale netted enough, but watching savings drain hurt differently than expected. And if I settle? Give him something to walk away? Depends what you offer, but settling rewards theft. And Rodney smells blood now. He might demand unreasonable terms. So fight or surrender. Those are the options in any war. I met with my financial advisor, Patricia, who'd managed my retirement investments for 8 years. She ran numbers, showed me scenarios. $50,000 over 6 months, sustainable. $80,000 over a year, damaging but not destroying. The question, she said carefully, is whether winning is worth the cost, even if you keep the house. I didn't answer immediately. Later, alone, I thought, yes, it is. Robert Michaels called 2 weeks in. First settlement overture. Mr. Evans, I'm calling to see if we can resolve this without lengthy litigation. My client is willing to lease the property back to you at reasonable rate until you find alternative housing. The property is mine. I'm not leasing my own house. The deed says otherwise. I'm trying to find middle ground here. The deed is fraudulent. There is no middle ground between ownership and theft. His tone cooled. Then we'll see you in court. I began documenting everything obsessively. Daily log of events, timeline of interactions, financial records showing house payments and ownership history, photographs of missing items. I converted the guest bedroom into a war room, documents organized in labeled folders, timeline posted on wall, legal filings filed chronologically. If this was battle, I'd fight with information. 2 weeks into this phase, I sat in my living room surrounded by legal documents, bank statements showing depleted retainer, Margaret's cost projections, Rodney's counter motions, Cora's social media attacks, The weight accumulated. I allowed myself 5 minutes of doubt. Wondered if settling would be easier. Then I remembered the airport, the empty seats, the missing passport, the $20 bill, the calculation in my son's betrayal. The doubt hardened back into resolve. I'd see this through. 4 days after hiring Sarah Chen, I met her at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground, her preference for initial findings discussions. She arrived with a tablet and manila folder, ordered black coffee, wasted no time. "Your son is drowning," she said without preamble. 47,000 in credit card debt across 6 cards. Maxed out, 3 in collections, 1 threatening lawsuit. He's been dodging calls for months. She opened the tablet, showed me spreadsheets. Red dominated the screen. Overdue, delinquent collections. Started 18 months ago. Lifestyle inflation. Expensive dinners, designer purchases. Vacations Cora posted about last year. Income couldn't support spending. She swiped to another screen. Then the debt spiral. Minimum payments missed. Interest compounding. Balance transfers at predatory rates. 6 months ago, one creditor filed intent to sue. That's probably when he started planning this. She looked at me directly. The house wasn't greed. It was desperation. So he took my house to pay his debts. Tried to. The vacation timing, leaving you stranded. That was about establishing possession before you could interfere. But I came back early. Best decision you made. Another week and he'd have changed locks. Moved in, claimed adverse possession while you were stuck in Mexico. Sarah produced more evidence. Emails from 3 different real estate agents, all contacted in February. Subject line on all 3. Property evaluation request. He sent your address, described the house, asked for market analysis. She showed me the responses. 830,000 estimate, 865,000, 840,000. Average, 845,000. He was shopping your house while living in it, before you signed anything, before Mexico. This proves planning. I read the emails twice, cold, calculated preparation. My son priced my home like merchandise. There's more, Sarah said. This part's legally gray. Data broker, internet search records, technically purchasable, but courts might question it. She showed me anyway. Search queries from Rodney's IP address, timestamped January and February. How to convince parent to transfer property. Deed of gift versus quitclaim deed. Can property transfer be reversed? What happens if someone abandons elderly person abroad? That last one, dated February 18th, made my stomach turn. Rodney was researching abandonment 6 weeks before doing it. 2 days before the preliminary hearing, Margaret reviewed all new evidence in her conference room. The financial desperation establishes motive. The realtor contacts establish premeditation. The search history, she paused. That's powerful, but potentially inadmissible, depending on how it was obtained. We'll include it in our brief, but be prepared for Michaels to challenge. She organized documents into presentation order. You'll testify about the signing, describe exactly what Rodney told you, how the document was presented, that you never saw printed copy. Then we hit them with the planning evidence. Margaret drilled me on testimony. Mock cross-examination, her paralegal playing Michaels. Mr. Evans, you signed this document, correct? Yes, but... No buts. Yes or no. Margaret stopped us. He'll try to reduce you to yes, no answers. Resist that. Judge Morrison allows witnesses to explain. Use that. We practiced for 2 hours. My answers got sharper, clearer, less defensive. The hearing arrived. King County Courthouse, Department 15, late April morning. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding, mid-50s, reputation for no-nonsense efficiency. I sat at plaintiff table beside Margaret. Across the aisle, Rodney, Cora, and Michaels. First time father and son in same room since the porch confrontation. Rodney didn't meet my eyes. Margaret presented opening arguments. Fraudulent transfer through misrepresentation, elder exploitation, criminal abandonment context, Michaels countered. Valid gift, proper execution, plaintiff's remorse dressed as fraud claims. Judge Morrison listened without expression. Mr. Evans, you'll testify first. I took the witness stand, hand on Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? I do. Margaret guided me through chronology, my relationship with Rodney, allowing them to live rent-free. The February document signing. What did your son tell you about the document? He said it was an update to my medical power of attorney. Standard language about healthcare decisions if I became incapacitated. He said I should sign it to be current. Did you read the document thoroughly? He displayed it on his laptop screen. Small text. He scrolled quickly, said it was standard boilerplate. I trusted him. He's my son. Michaels cross-examined aggressively. But you did sign it, Mr. Evans? Yes. You're educated, ran a business for decades? Yes. Capable of reading legal documents? Yes. Yet you claim you didn't understand what you signed. I didn't flinch. I understood it was presented as a medical directive. I didn't know it was actually a property transfer until I found the recorded deed weeks later. Michaels pivoted. Isn't it true you had a disagreement with your son after this trip? There was no disagreement. There was abandonment and theft. Judge Morrison. Answer the question as asked, Mr. Evans. Margaret presented the investigation evidence. Financial records showing Rodney's debt. Emails to realtors. Timeline of planning. Michaels objected repeatedly. Relevance? My client's financial situation doesn't invalidate a legal property transfer. Margaret argued. Establishes motive for fraud, Your Honor. Shows this wasn't a gift, but a scheme born of financial desperation. Judge Morrison reviewed documents, made notes. I'm ordering expert examination of the signing circumstances. Independent notary expert to evaluate whether proper protocols were followed. Both parties will make experts available. Hearing continued for 6 weeks pending expert report. I drove home from the courthouse thinking about Rodney's face during testimony. Pale, rigid, eyes fixed on the defense table. His son didn't testify. Michaels advised against it, probably. Smart lawyering. Why put someone on the stand who might crack? Daniel called as I pulled into my driveway. How did it go? Ongoing. Judge ordered more investigation. That's good, though, right? She's taking it seriously. Yes, but seriously doesn't mean quickly. Inside, I found Margaret's message on voicemail. Call me when you can. Development in the case. Not urgent, but interesting. Her tone suggested something worth discussing. I dialed her back. Time to learn what comes next in this endless battle. 2 days after the preliminary hearing, Margaret's development became clear. Michaels filed motion for psychological evaluation. Arguing my age and possible cognitive decline affected my understanding of the document I signed. I sat in Dr. Rachel Foster's office for court-ordered assessment. This evaluation is requested by opposing counsel, she explained, professional and neutral. They're suggesting cognitive impairment affected your ability to understand legal documents. I'll assess memory, comprehension, decision-making capacity. The results go to both attorneys and the court. I understood the implication. Rodney's lawyer was calling me mentally unfit. Let's begin with some memory exercises. 2 hours of testing. Short-term memory recall. Remember list of words. Repeat back. Long-term memory. Describe business career. Significant life events. Cognitive processing. Solve puzzles. Identify patterns. I'm going to read you a list of 10 words. Try to remember as many as possible. After hearing the list, hospital, television, curtain, flower, envelope, sidewalk, piano, thunder, basket, mirror. That's all 10 in order. Excellent recall. Now tell me about a significant decision you made in the past 5 years. I provided detailed chronology. Selling my business. Equipment supply company I built over 30 years. Had offers from 3 buyers. Evaluated each based on price, terms, and what would happen to my employees. Sold to the buyer, offering best outcome for everyone. Closed in September 2022 for net proceeds of $320,000 after taxes. Dr. Foster wrote notes. Detailed memory, clear reasoning process. Good. 1 week later, Margaret called. Dr. Foster's report is in. You're officially mentally competent. She read excerpts. Subject demonstrates intact memory function, normal cognitive processing for age, clear decision-making capacity, no signs of dementia or significant impairment, fully capable of understanding legal documents and making informed choices. Michaels tried to paint you as confused old man. This demolishes that narrative. Sarah Chen called the same day. Coincidence, but fortunate timing. Found your notary. Frank Morrison, freelance, works from home office. I did informal interview. He got talking. She paused for effect. Rodney paid him $300 cash to notarize your signature at a Starbucks. Not his office. Not your home. A coffee shop. Frank admits he felt uncomfortable but needed the money. That's a violation of notary protocols. Margaret and I met Frank Morrison 3 days later at his small office in Ballard. Frank was nervous. Mid-40s, thinning hair, apologetic demeanor. I shouldn't have done it that way. Professional notaries should work from proper office, verify circumstances. But Rodney said his father was too ill to come to my office, had mobility issues. Could I meet them at a convenient location? Paid cash up front. I needed the work. He shifted uncomfortably. When I got there, you seemed perfectly healthy. Walked in fine, ordered your own coffee. I wondered about the story, but Rodney rushed everything. My dad has appointment after this. We're short on time. I notarized quickly. Felt wrong. Margaret prepared his statement with legal precision. I, Frank Morrison, licensed notary public in Washington State, hereby attest that. The statement detailed the Starbucks meeting, the cash payment, Rodney's rushed insistence, the procedural irregularities. You understand this likely ends your notary business? Margaret asked. Frank nodded. I understand. But what I did was wrong. I should have refused. One evening, Daniel knocked on my door. Cora called me, asked me to pass message to you. She says you won't answer Rodney's calls. I hadn't. Blocked Rodney's number after the confrontation. What message? Daniel looked uncomfortable. She's offering to settle. They'll sign quitclaim deed, return the house legally to you in exchange for $200,000. One-time payment. They walk away. Case ends. $200,000, quarter of the house's value. She said to think about it. Consider the legal costs you're facing. This ends it now. My answer was immediate. No. Tell her no. I discussed it with Margaret the next morning. She was unsurprised. They're seeing the evidence accumulate. Psychological report, notary statement, financial desperation, premeditation proof. Cora's smart enough to know they're losing. $200,000 is her exit strategy. She met my eyes. But if we win fully, you get your house free and clear. If you settle, you pay them a fortune for stealing from you. We're not settling. I'm not paying ransom for my own property. Sarah delivered her final investigation report. Comprehensive document summarizing everything. Cost $2,000, but worth every cent. Margaret filed it as supplemental evidence. This is devastating to their case. 3 weeks passed in tense preparation. Margaret filed all new evidence with court. Michaels filed counter-arguments. The legal battle became paper war. I was into the case for $17,000 now. 4 days before the scheduled hearing, Margaret called with urgency I hadn't heard before. Judge Morrison moved our hearing up. 2 days from now. She's reviewed all evidence and wants oral arguments immediately. Is that good or bad? Unknown. But judges don't expedite cases they plan to dismiss. She's seen something that demands quick resolution. A pause. Be ready. This might end soon. One way or another. Judge Morrison entered. The bailiff called. All rise. Everyone stood. She sat. Everyone sat. Choreography of justice. Margaret leaned close. Remember, whatever happens in the next few hours determines everything. I nodded. Didn't need the reminder. Morrison reviewed her notes. Looked up. I've examined all submitted evidence. This hearing will address the motion to invalidate the deed of gift based on fraud. Mr. Michaels, you may begin. Michaels stood, adjusted his tie, addressed Morrison directly. Your Honor, this case is simple. Adult son, aging father, legitimate estate planning conversation. The father signed a deed of gift, his signature verified genuine, properly notarized. Now, months later, after a family disagreement, he claims fraud. He gestured dismissively toward Margaret's evidence stack. Financial difficulties don't prove fraud. Pre-planning doesn't prove fraud. Family conflict doesn't prove fraud. The deed stands on its legal merit. He sat down. Confident. Too confident. Margaret rose, picked up Frank Morrison's statement. Your Honor, the notary's sworn statement details procedural violations that invalidate the notarization. The signing occurred at a Starbucks, not proper office. Mr. Morrison was paid $300 cash. unusual for services typically costing $25. He was told Mr. Evans had mobility issues and couldn't travel. Demonstrably false. She picked up another document. The defendant contacted 3 real estate agents before the vacation, requesting property valuations. Before his father signed anything, he was pricing the house like merchandise. That's not estate planning. That's theft planning. Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Michaels, how do you explain your client paying 12 times normal notary fee for services at an unusual location? Michaels stood. Perhaps he wanted to accommodate his father's schedule, Your Honor. The fee reflects convenience. Morrison's expression showed skepticism. And the false statements about mobility issues? Michaels hesitated. I'd need to confirm those allegations with my client. Morrison turned to Margaret. Ms. Chen, fraud is difficult standard. Preponderance of evidence requires showing Mr. Evans was actively deceived about document contents. Can you meet that burden? Margaret nodded. The notary will testify Mr. Evans was never told the document's true nature. The defendant rushed the process, controlled the presentation, never provided signed copy for review. Michaels called Rodney to the stand. Risky move, but necessary to counter my narrative. Under direct examination, Rodney maintained his story. I showed my father the document, explained it was transferring the house. He understood. He wanted me to have security. Margaret's cross-examination was surgical. You told the notary your father had mobility issues? I said he preferred not to travel that day. Did he have mobility issues? Not exactly, but yes or no? No. You paid $300 cash for notarization? I wanted to ensure quality service. Did you tell your father the document was a medical power of attorney? Rodney paused too long. I may have mentioned medical planning in the conversation. May have, or did. It was part of broader discussion. You're not answering the question, Mr. Evans. I watched my son's face, saw the tells, hand-touching nose when he hedged, eyes darting to Michaels when asked direct questions, voice rising defensively. He was lying under oath, badly. Morrison called brief recess. Margaret received a phone call, requested permission to approach bench, spoke quietly with Morrison and Michaels, returned to me. Police executed search warrant on storage unit rented in Rodney's name. Found your watch, camera, silver service, everything you reported stolen. Validation and anger simultaneously. Physical proof, criminal evidence. When court reconvened, Morrison addressed both parties. I've been informed that items allegedly stolen from plaintiff's home have been recovered from defendant's storage unit. This adds criminal dimension to civil case. Prosecution will receive full referral. Rodney's face went pale. Cora grabbed his arm, whispered urgently. Michaels requested sidebar, argued briefly at bench. Morrison shook her head, gestured them back. Michaels returned, looking defeated, whispered to Rodney, who slumped in his chair. I knew that posture. The collapse of someone whose last hope just evaporated. Morrison delivered her ruling without dramatic pause. Based on evidence presented, this court finds by preponderance of evidence that the deed of gift was procured through fraudulent misrepresentation. The notarization violated standard protocols. The defendant's testimony contained material inconsistencies. She paused. The pattern of premeditation, combined with subsequent abandonment in Mexico and theft of property, establishes intentional scheme rather than legitimate gift. The deed is hereby declared null and void. Title remains with plaintiff Alton Evans. All stolen property must be returned within 48 hours. I'm referring criminal matters to the King County Prosecutor's Office for potential charges. The gavel fell. Case decided. I drove home in afternoon sun. The house was mine again, legally, officially, permanently. Pulled into the driveway, sat in the car for a moment. Same house I returned to weeks ago after Mexico. But different now. Vindicated. Protected. Mine. Got out, walked to the front door. Inserted my key. The new key Rodney couldn't use. Turned it. Stepped inside. The house smelled like home. Not triumph. Just home. Through the window, I saw Daniel's porch light on. Walked over, knocked. Daniel opened, saw my face, understood immediately. You won. I won. We sat on his porch, drinking whiskey Daniel saves for special occasions. Talked about baseball, about his garden plans, about the neighborhood. Normal conversation. After months of abnormal, Normal felt extraordinary. I walked home under streetlights, entered my house, locked my door with my key, stood in the quiet living room. Tomorrow, the aftermath. Tonight, just peace. 2 days after the ruling, I drove to Seattle Police Evidence Facility to collect my stolen items. Sterile government building, fluorescent lights, bureaucratic forms. An officer brought out a plastic bin labeled with my case number. Inside, my grandfather's Omega watch, face scratched but running, the Leica camera, vintage leather case worn but intact, silver service wrapped in evidence bags, tarnished but restorable. I signed the receipt form, carried the bin to my car carefully, as if transporting something fragile. Home again, I unwrapped each item. The watch first, wound it, listened to mechanical tick resume, set correct time, placed it in its case on my dresser where it always lived. The camera next. Check mechanism, shutter still worked. Returned it to shelf in study. Silver service required polishing. I spent an evening with silver cleaner and soft cloth, removing tarnish, restoring shine. Methodical work, meditative. Each piece cleaned was a piece of my life restored. Margaret called with news. Morrison issued judgment order. Rodney and Cora are jointly liable for $15,000. Reimbursement of your court costs. Compensation for emotional distress. And damages for property theft. Can they pay? Her laugh was humorless. They can't pay their current debts. This judgment goes to the back of a very long line, but it's on their record. Permanent mark. I didn't need the money. I wanted the accountability. 2 weeks later, the prosecutor's office called. Assistant prosecutor named James Riley. Sounded young and overworked. Mr. Evans, we're offering your son a plea agreement. Plead guilty to theft and attempted fraud. Receive 2 years probation, restitution to you, and community service. No jail time given his lack of prior record, but conviction on his record permanently. I don't want revenge. I want accountability. If probation accomplishes that, accept the plea. Riley sounded relieved. Thank you. Some victims push for maximum punishment. This is proportional. Proportional. The word felt right. I met with Estate Attorney Richard Taft in Bellevue. You want to ensure your son can never inherit this property. I nodded. Never. Not if I die tomorrow. Not if I die in 30 years. Richard drafted new will on his computer. Clear language. I explicitly disinherit my son, Rodney Evans, from any claim to my estate. Upon my death, my house shall transfer to the Seattle Housing Foundation to be used for low-income elderly housing. I signed, feeling strange peace. My son tried to take everything, now gets nothing. Not as punishment, as protection. Margaret delivered final bill in person. Professional courtesy. One last meeting to close the case. $19,500 total. I absorbed some research costs and reduced my hourly rate for the final month. I wrote the check without hesitation. You saved my house, and probably my sanity. Worth every penny. She smiled slightly. Most clients complain about legal fees. Most clients don't have sons who try to steal their homes. Early August. Warm Seattle evening. I sat on my front porch with iced tea, reading newspaper. Down the street, a moving truck backed into the apartment complex. Curiosity pulled me to watch. Saw furniture being loaded, cheap pieces, some I recognized from Rodney's room years ago. Then saw them. Rodney carrying boxes. Cora directing movers with sharp gestures. Eviction. Couldn't afford rent anymore. I stayed on my porch, partially hidden by rose bushes. Watched my son's life collapse into cardboard boxes and a rental truck. Rodney looked thinner, older, defeated. Loaded boxes mechanically. No energy. Cora got in the truck passenger seat. Didn't help. Rodney climbed into driver's seat. Truck pulled away. Gone. I sat in silence, processing what I witnessed. I won. Justice happened. My son was destroyed. None of it felt good. It just felt done. Later, Daniel came over. Saw the moving truck. That was them, wasn't it? Yeah. Evicted for non-payment. How do you feel about that? Empty. Not happy, not sad. Just empty. You won. That's supposed to feel good. Winning meant my son lost everything. That's not victory. That's survival. Sometimes survival is the only victory available. September approached. Summer faded toward fall. My house stood solid on its Capitol Hill foundation. My house, legally and emotionally. The garden needed attention. I spent a Saturday weeding, planting fall bulbs, preparing for next season. Daniel helped. Two men working in companionable silence. We drank beer afterward on my porch, watching the street. You ever think about selling, moving somewhere easier? I considered. This house almost got stolen from me. Now that I've fought to keep it, I'm not leaving. Fair enough. We sat watching evening arrive. My phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. Could be anything. Probably nothing important. My life had returned to peaceful unimportance. Normal problems? Lawn maintenance, grocery shopping, upcoming dentist appointment. No lawyers, no courts, no betrayals. Just life. The ordinary, precious life I defended. The phone stopped ringing. The street stayed quiet. The house stood. I remained on my porch, in my home, surrounded by the simple victory of having survived someone else's greed. Justice isn't always satisfying, but it's always necessary. I learned that these past months. Learned it at great cost, financially, emotionally, familially. Was it worth it? I looked at my house, the pale blue paint, the white trim, the porch I rebuilt, the garden I tend, my house, my life, my terms. Yes, it was worth it. Every dollar, every stress, every painful moment. Because some things can't be priced. Some things have to be defended. And some victories, even when they hurt, are still victories worth winning. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.